Hi everybody and welcome today. I don't know what just happened. I think I just must have pressed another button. What is going on? Let's Okay, so I know what the problem is. Problem is, it's way too early in the morning and I haven't had enough coffee. I actually had another version of YouTube running in the background and I could hear myself in echo, and that was incredibly annoying and irritating. And here's the thing, it is Sunday morning here in Australia. I am just not prepared to be here. I wasn't going to be here, but I kind of missed coming online and just chatting with you guys. So I don't know if anyone's going to see this or if anyone's going to come. It's not going to be a great one, and there's a really good chance I might even make this unlisted the moment I finish it. But let's just see what happens today. So, because I scheduled this like all of 4 minutes ago, I don't even have a fresh cup of coffee to sip while I do this. So it's going to be really, really interesting. So normally, the idea behind, I suppose, this particular stream is really just for me to have a bit of chat, have a bit of coffee, and actually do some content creation, which I don't do as much as I wish I was doing, if I'm being honest. Like it's a bit of a problem. And I just want to make sure I've clicked that button to make sure that thing is working, and I'm going to do a little fake test message. There we go, from Steve. Okay, cool. I think that's all working. And I guess the other thing is I don't feel particularly centered literally or figuratively, but that's okay. Let's just see what happens. Oh dear. Life is interesting, isn't it? All right, so normally I would be a lot more prepared than I am today. So, forgive me for that if you can. But I guess one of the threads that keeps coming up is StreamYard have been purchased by another company, Bending Spoons. Lots of changes, and I kind of don't, I feel like I've said everything I want to say about Bending Spoons as a company before, so I don't really want to go over that again. But former StreamYard customers really are looking for something new to actually wrangle with. So I just want to talk about that briefly, because as much as I love OBS Studio and I think it's amazing, I know it's not really for everybody. So what I want to do instead is just sort of mention some of the other options that I think might be worth checking out. One of them is Restream. Restream is a service that I'm currently using. There's a couple of different ways to actually use Restream. And one is to send a feed out from your live streaming software, whether that's OBS Studio or something like Ecamm Live. You could certainly do that, and Restream will take that signal and sort of send it to a whole bunch of different live streaming destinations. And it can also wrangle the comments, and you can schedule pre-recorded videos to go out at specific times and other things like that, which can be really, really useful. But it also has its browser-based experience, so you can run your whole show through Restream Studio, is what they call it, and essentially you'll have different things there that you can sort of work with moving forward. So that's an option, and that's kind of the one I'm most familiar with. We're going to do a show on that on the video and live streaming show later this week. But let me just share my screen. So a couple of other ones that I want to talk to you about as potential options, and all of these have free trial options. So I don't want to tell you which one you should be using, because I think everyone has personal preferences, and whatever makes sense for you is what you should be doing. I'm actually just going to do something in the background here, just to make my life a little bit easier. Okay, cool. So this is Streamlabs Talk Studio. This is actually part of Streamlabs itself. And hello, Ernesto, who's watching from Arizona. Great to have your company. So I just want to mention Streamlabs Talk Studio, because it used to be called something different, and I can't even remember what it was called, if I'm being honest. But this again is another one of these browser-based experiences. So if we go to the features here, this will be very familiar to a lot of you that may have used StreamYard or similar things in the past. Essentially, you will have something you can wrangle with in the desktop, and especially if you're just looking for Okay, so Ernesto's is working on signing up with Ecamm when I get my Mac Mini M4. Okay, cool. I'd be interested to hear how that goes for you, Ernesto. I know the Mac Minis. They seem to have a bit of power there. I'm not really an Apple guy at the moment. I did debate getting a Mac Mini as sort of an extension of my existing setup, but I don't think I want to go there right now. But I might revisit that in the future. But essentially, no matter what you use, it's all good. But I guess, 5 clicks and you're alive. So, this is, and it's kind of annoying. I kind of wish they had some better photos of what this actually looks like in here, because I'd love to show you, but it looks like they've got resources. But the thing that's kind of interesting to me is if we take a step back from Streamlabs Studio itself, we can get started for free. But the thing I want to talk to you about is actually Ultra, because this is something I'm really intrigued about, and I really want to explore this at some point in the near future. So Streamlabs actually has their desktop app, which originally was forked from OBS Studio, so it's a very similar experience, although it's a kind of a pared down and simplified experience. Some people will really appreciate that pared down experience. Some people who maybe like the advanced features might be missing some of those things. So it's, again, it comes down to what you like and what your preferences are. There is a mobile app as well. So if you do any kind of mobile streaming or mobile gaming, you can do that as well. The Web Suite Ultra. Again, I guess this is the kind of their marketplace as well. So I don't really know very much about that. But essentially, we've got all these different pieces of software here together. Streamlabs console, if you're streaming from a particular game without a desktop computer. Talk Studio Pro, which is the thing I alluded to before. The Video Editor Pro. Cross Clip Pro. So, this thing that you can repurpose your clips to make short clips out of. And even a podcast editor. So text-based editing for free. So the free plan gives you 1 hour upload and the Ultra gives you 40 hours upload. I don't think I would be in a position personally to have 40 hours of audio content, even video content to share a month. So that's kind of crazy. So, I mean, there are all these things that the only bugbear for me is I'm actually very comfortable in OBS, and I'd have to make that change potentially to use some of these products. But I'm really curious because it's all of, I think, $19 US per month to actually do this. And this is sort of a picture of Talk Studio Pro. So again, it's very much about having the guests on one side and having all your options on the other side and just exploring those and having your overlays and backgrounds in your videos. So it's very similar to the Streamlabs, the StreamYard experience. I don't know how much you can customize the layouts. That would probably be, because that was one place that StreamYard actually really excelled, was you could make your own custom layouts. But again, I think that's really cool. And again, you can sign up to a lot of this for free and just have a go and see where you end up. So that was Streamlabs Talk Pro and Streamlabs Ultra. But the other thing too, and again, I must admit, I've never really used this one, but I know some people love it. This is OneStream Live. And the reason, it's really funny because I got a new computer at the beginning of the year and they had a special at the beginning of the year and I almost purchased it, but I couldn't actually get my video camera to work with it at that time. And I don't think it was actually the software that was the problem. I think there was a configuration thing that I need to do on my computer to make that work. But again, it's a very similar type experience. You can sort of bring people in, you can sort of change the scenes up a little bit. You've got your banners and that marquee text at the bottom scrolling across the screen. You can have pre-recorded videos and even playlist streaming. The playlist streaming is another thing that Restream does too, although you will need to look at the different plan levels depending on what you're actually looking for as well. Again, this is something that StreamYard actually didn't do, was that it doesn't give you the RTMP stream. So this is the ability to go from something like OBS or Ecamm Live and just send it to other places, which is something StreamYard doesn't actually do. And that's kind of one of the reasons we sort of originally left it for the video and live streaming show. So, I mean, there are all kinds of options there, but those are kind of the three that I would recommend you check out. And they all have some sort of free tier. So It's a really good place to start. Again, I can't guarantee that you'll love it or you won't love it, but it sort of is what it is. All right, so I just wanted to mention that too because there was literally a question about that on LinkedIn, so I can probably even splice that out of make a video out of that later on. Okay. Don't you just love it when some random person on the internet goes in and likes your 20 most recent LinkedIn posts? Like, I'm deeply suspicious. And of course, they're a digital marketing specialist too. So they're probably spamming me even as we speak. So I might just make that person go away. But anyway. All right. I would normally stop and have a sip of coffee. But like I said, because this particular stream was so impromptu, I haven't even made another cup of coffee. So I can't do that. But that's okay. I guess the other thing, and again, I don't really have a DaVinci Resolve project this week, just because this week has been a lot for a lot of different reasons. The heat is getting really intense here in Australia, and a part of me, because this particular room I'm in right now isn't normally air conditioned, so I do have a portable air conditioning unit that I can sort of bring in periodically and wrangle. So I mean that's certainly a thing I can do, but yeah, like the temptation is often to want to leave the windows open, and that's great. Except the cicadas are so freaking loud at this time of year. It's honestly insane. And I'm fortunate in the sense that my mic is a fairly quiet mic, so it's usually okay. But it is kind of weird in that regard. All right, so yeah, that's that. But again, let's just because I'm a creature of habit and I don't really have anything else planned. Let's go into DaVinci Resolve and let's do some wrangling of some DaVinci Resolve type things. And I'm gonna say like and subscribe revisited. I should share my screen so you know what I'm talking about. All right, so I'm just creating a new project here in DaVinci Resolve 19. All right, and I'm just going to move this out of the way a little bit because it's close, but it's maybe a little bit too close. So what I'm going to do, what am I going to do here? I'm going to go to maybe titles. I mean, in some ways, like because I'm just learning, I'm just trying stuff out and seeing how I go. But what we kind of want to do, I think, and I'll do this in the edit tab just because I know what I'm, I say that. I don't know that I even know what I'm doing, but if we go to the effects option here, I can find I say that. Okay. Well, a fusion is what I'm looking for, not resolve. I really haven't had enough coffee. It's a bit insane. So I'm going to drag this onto the timeline and we'll just wait for that to catch up. I probably have a few too many things running on my computer right now, but essentially it's 5 seconds long, which I think is pretty good. Oh, Ernesto, I am so jealous. Ernesto writes, I bought the speed editor that came with DaVinci Resolve, but I haven't used it yet. Yeah, so it's such a beautiful looking thing. And again, because I'm mostly dabbling in Fusion, I actually haven't really conquered the cut page yet. So there's a part of me that would need to learn about that, but it is so beautiful. And I think it's like all of 650, 700 Australian dollars, which, given that it comes with the complete version of DaVinci Resolve, I think is very affordable. And Ernesto also writes, I haven't used Resolve because my university gives me an educational discount with Adobe. I actually have access to the Adobe suite, but I try to avoid using the Adobe suite as much as is humanly possible. There's something about that company that makes me very nervous. And hello to Saeed, who's watching from Germany, where he probably should be asleep, but we appreciate his company today. So anyway, let's, what I've done is I've brought this little thing on this Fusion composition. I really haven't had enough coffee this morning. It's ridiculous. I'm going to go into the Fusion tab And what I might do, because in fact, let me show you. This is the original version of my like and subscribe animation. Let me just throw this on the screen. And to be honest, that was the very first thing I ever did in DaVinci Resolve Fusion, and it's okay, but I think it's not the most elegant thing. So what we might try today is just to make something that works a little bit better. And Said writes, life hack, press the arrow up or down in the timeline to jump to the next cut or straight to the end of the video. I actually watched a video on YouTube sort of explain all the different things the Alt key can do on the keyboard, and it sort of blew my mind. Like even, you know, even dragging media onto... You know, if you had some media up here, and I don't, but essentially if you had a video with audio and visuals, if you drag it down and hold down the Alt key, you can grab just the video or just the audio, depending on where you end up dropping that. So, which is really cool. And again, DaVinci is one of those things, I have a feeling it wouldn't matter how long I spent with this, I would never learn everything. It's very much like OBS in that sense. So, all right, what I'm going to do... Hello, Travel Around Susie. Thanks for being here. Ernesto writes, I'm trying to detach myself from Adobe as well. If it wasn't for the university using Adobe, I probably would be using Resolve. Yeah. And like I guess the other thing, and I hadn't looked at this in quite a while, but it seems like the Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, and again, I'm working in Australian dollars, but I think it was like $90 a month for those apps. And I'm like, I don't use any of that stuff enough to sort of justify that cost. And I kind of, like, I'm making a very deliberate, conscious decision not to jump into that ecosystem if I can avoid it. And part of the reason, and I guess the other thing too, is like I have been using Camtasia as a video editor for years and years, and it's okay, but the thing that I really was missing was the ability to export video projects that had a transparent background. So speaking of which, I've dragged my background node onto my timeline. I will connect this up to my media outs. We do have this sort of side-by-side view here. I personally prefer to just look at the single media out, but that's just me. You can do whatever you like. So now we've got our background. Again, if I do want to make this transparent, and you know I do, we want it to be black, which is what it's defaulted to, but I just want to bring down the alpha to 0. So then you'll see the checker pattern behind it, and we'll see that that's what that looks like. So again, there is some sort of grid option here, and Sayed probably would know. Maybe you can tell me in the chat. Guides, show guides. Here we go. All right, cool. That's what I want. Show me the guides. Show me the money. All right. So essentially, you know, I've got these safe zones, and again, I don't know that we need to be too neurotic about this, but I just love the fact that this breaks this center section up into 4. I think that can be really quite useful. And Seed writes, learning all the basic shortcuts and hotkeys helps a lot to reduce the frustration level when creating and editing. And eventually, once I know what they are, I hope to make Stream Deck buttons for them and then forget what they are entirely. All right. Ernesto writes, I pay $24 a month for the full suite. I do use Audition, Premiere, Illustrator for school projects. Yeah, and I sort of have a background in web design and development, and I really liked Illustrator. I don't know. Yeah, anyway, that's a whole other therapy show about how I feel about Adobe, but I really did like Illustrator, and I still occasionally I might grab something out of Illustrator that I want to use for another project. But anyway, let's drag our text node on here, and if I bring the output of this and I put it over here, theoretically it should create a merge for me. Okay. I mean, there's no text in here, so we can't see what this is yet, but we'll go like, I genuinely can't spell. Like, all right. And we can hopefully Make that a little bit bigger. All right, this is probably the point at which I'm just gonna reach for and I didn't do this the first time I did this, but I'm gonna reach for a transform node. I'm gonna bring this in here. Let's bring that, and again, I'm never really sure which of these nodes is right, but let's just try this. Let's just see if that shows me anything. It's probably not right. Let's let that go. Let's come out of here and maybe into the yellow one. There we go. That's what I want. Okay. Cool. So the transform node essentially lets me transform the thing that is coming into it, and that could be making it larger or smaller. And I have actually I've transformed the merge. That's what I did the first time around with this, and it's okay. It works. It basically works. But I think this is a slightly better approach. So, although I need to be careful I don't just randomly click on things. So what we might do, let's go into our text. We can increase the size of this again. Not that big, obviously. This is genuinely the thing that sort of blows my mind a little bit, is that, and I've spoken about this before, but essentially these size values are kind of in reference to the canvas itself. So if I make this 1, it'll just be, it'll essentially fill the canvas, which is not really what I want. So I probably need to work in 0 point something. And, you know, I can drag this little thing here. In fact, maybe that's the way I want to do it. Although I might be better if I just play with some numbers and see what it looks like. So it's probably even less than that. And I have actually essentially reversed the order of those letters. So that's already exciting. Yeah, Said writes, I think there are even pre-made profiles in the Elgato store for DaVinci. I'm sure they probably are. In fact, there might even be a plugin. Let me have a look at that really quickly, because I'm intrigued now. What I might need to do is just change my default browser. Chrome. All right. So if I go into the Elgato marketplace, computer's being a little slow. So if I go to DaVinci, so their icons, their profiles, transitions, overlays. Okay. So it doesn't look like there's a plugin as such, but the profiles might be quite useful. So DaVinci Resolve pack. Although they'd have to be really good for me to justify some of these prices. Good grief. But there you go. I mean, there are definitely some things in there, but that's interesting. Yep. All right. Cool. Guides are very cool. Writes Ernesto, Final Cut Pro did not have guides the last time I used it. Oh, that's interesting. Said writes, I also like the auto arrange feature for nodes. It makes everything look so much cleaner. I don't know what that is, Said, so you might need to tell me more. So I've clearly, I don't know what I've done there, but maybe we can, let's just undo a whole bunch of things. There we go. Let's try that. All right. So it's funny, I wanted to come in here and play with this just because that's what we normally do on this show, but I have a feeling my brain is just not in the right headspace for this week. So let's try that for argument's sake. And again, from the transform node, I'm literally just going to, can I just reposition that? I don't know that I can. I feel like ordinarily there would be a different selection tool here somewhere that I could just click on and move stuff around, and maybe I'm just not awake enough to know what that is today. So we've got the text there, we've got the transform, because Okay, so there we go. So if I select that thing in the middle, I can potentially resize this and move it around. And again, that's the transform itself, not so much the node. But let's go back to the text and let's, I don't know, let's try and make this a little bit smaller. All right, so maybe, I don't know, just a fraction, just a tiny little bit smaller than that. I could do this forever. I don't think I will because it'll be very annoying to watch. But anyway, okay, I think I'm happy with that. So what I want to do, let's align that to basically there. All right. Right click in the node area and check out Arrange Tools. Okay. To grid. Okay, so auto arrange is actually on. So it's doing whatever it does. Now I'm kind of wondering what happens if I turn it off. Anyway, that's that's probably the least of my problems right now. So auto arrange to grid to connected. Okay. Anywho, let's bring on another bit of text and transform. And let's merge it in with the previous merge. Not like that. There we go. And again, I guess the other thing too is I probably should get in the name of actually renaming these things. So into the habit of renaming things. So if I go F2, I can say like txt. In fact, what I might do is I'll go like underscore txt. And again, I don't think it matters how you name these, but I'm just trying to bring in my my personal conventions here. So I'll go transform. I'll go like transform, and we'll do end text. Because I'll probably want to do something different with this in a bit. All right, let's go to our text. I think I'm going to try and just use an ampersand for this one today. And this probably could get quite large potentially. And again, let's just use the, because even that, like, I don't know, visually that might, I don't know. I need to think about that a little bit. All right. Look, let's just throw this up here, and we can think about how we want to design this later on, because I think it may even be worthwhile to choose a different font for this. So I don't maybe something with a little bit of style, not this monotype one though, because that just doesn't even look like anything. Oh, get some fun arrows there. Actually, I kind of like that. But I think it's a little bit too big now. So if we go maybe 0.35 or 34, I think is basically what this used to be. All right. Well, again, it might be worthwhile if we bring in our next text node over here, transform it. Again, I'll bring that down here because it's just visually how I like things. All right, so we'll go subscribe. I promise you I'm a really good typer when I'm not live streaming. Not today, evidently, but you know, it is what it is. Okay, so we've got that there. Let's bring this down here. And I guess, you know, this is where it could get really interesting because we can think about how we want to actually animate these things onto the screen. Although I feel like that's probably a little bit too big for the word subscribe. So let's go 2.5. I think that's potentially going to work a little bit better. Although I don't love where the ampersand is now. So let's... And maybe, yeah, I don't know. This is a problem I have with these kinds of streams is I haven't made any of these creative decisions ahead of time, so I'm just making them up now. Let's try and make this smaller. And that is literally a different font now, so I need to keep that in mind as well, because we may need to go back to what we had before. I'm not really sure. Like and subscribe. Although I guess the other thing that might be worthwhile, and I'm not sure if this is going to be particularly elegant, but and I don't know if this will work, but I'm going to try it anyway. Let's bring in a rectangle mask. That is really interesting. So, where did because I feel like, yes, the text, the transform. So, yeah, I mean, there's a good chance that the transform needs to come between those two things. And again, just because I don't really know what I'm doing, I will manually drag this out. And we'll bring that into here. And we'll bring that into here. Okay, that didn't bring that in anywhere. Maybe I can't do that there. All right, maybe it does need to be in the transform one. All right, I'm not going to even dwell on that too much because clearly I'm not particularly in fusion mode today. But that's okay. Let's just bring these things in. I am gonna try and again, let's name this, and we will say subscribe. We'll just call it sub_text. Sub transform. Okay, so let's go to the keyframes. So right now, this goes for 5 seconds. I don't think I want anything on here until, and I guess I'm looking in keyframes here. So 150 frames, I'm thinking. Yeah, technically 149, but that's okay. So let's go to the keyframes. Let's bring these things in at different times. So let's subscribe is probably the last one I want in. I might just move this out of the way. Let's say 70. I think 70 would work. So I'm going to drag this in. So this, essentially all this is going to do is say, don't bring in the subtext until that point, that particular keyframe, which I think is 70 keyframes. And then let's go back a little bit. And again, this is quite arbitrary. I'll have to play this and see what it looks like. Let's do the same for the and text. And the and text and the... Did that... okay. I mean, it's doing that for the transform as well, but to be honest, that's fine for our purposes. Let's not even worry about that. And let's go back to 20, and we'll do this for the like. And this isn't really animating anything, but it'll just toggle the visibility of this at different keyframes. So now we hit play, like comes in, and subscribe. And I mean, you could potentially just leave it like that, but again, it's not the most exciting thing in the world. So what we might do, let's go down to our like transform. And I think, so that comes in at the 20 mark. So I'm going to say at about the 30 mark, let's put a keyframe in here. I don't know if I'm going to change all of these properties, but I think I'm just going to do that to give myself the option. All right. So again, I'm going to drag this off. And if we play through, it slides in, which I like. I think that works. All right. Again, like not even the most exciting thing, and I guess maybe what we should look at as well is some of the other modifiers that we can do as well. Aha! See, Saeed writes, by the way, you should check if your project is set to 30 frames per second when you start. By default, it's probably 24 or so. That is something I learned about. So let me show you what I did. If I go into project settings now, you'll see that playback frame rate is 30 frames per second. And the thing about that is if you make this change, and again, this is something I would do at the beginning of every project, but now once I've done it, you can actually go to the default preset and say update preset. So this is actually, everything's defaulting to 30 frames because that's just how I like to work. I did actually create this other John's default, but again, it's kind of annoying because I had to go in and sort of load that preset. But now I literally just updated this one and now it always defaults to that. But yes, I mean, that's a good call out. But again, that was one thing I learned in the last couple of weeks is that I can update the default settings. So that was exciting. All right. But let's go back to our text. So this is actually for the text itself, not the node. So, and this is probably the point at which we could get really fancy with modifiers and stuff. And again, because I don't have a lot of faith in this working out particularly well, I think let's just play. Let's just do that. Let's just go animate. I'm not really sure what I just did, to be honest. Okay, so I guess the text can change. You know what genuinely might be fun? So it's like here. And let's get to the 20 and let's change it to love. I just want to see if that works. Let's just try it. I've never done that before. Let's give it a go. Like love. I think that's actually really funny. But again, we're veering off into live, love, laugh territory, which is probably a little bit dicey. So we might put that back, but I mean, it is interesting that we can do that. But okay, so what I kind of really wanted to do though, and I'm not really sure, I think in the settings here, mask inverted, commas, image shading. And Said writes, same for the rendering. You can create your own profile for OBS stuff without background and set the right output format, etc. Saves a lot of time. We should totally do that before we finish today. So even if I haven't got this looking particularly elegant, let's do that. So the interesting thing about these shading elements is there are different things that we can actually wrangle here. And so if I go to number 2, I can select this. And I can give it, I can change it. And by default, it said red outline, but really this could be any color we wanted. And I kind of like the fluoro essence of that. And it looks like we can do it as a gradient too, and change the thickness and stuff. So maybe not like that, but you know. And the great thing is we can animate all of these properties, so they don't have to be static. So, I mean, it looks like we can even do a gradient here. So let's try and do an outline gradient. Let's go in. And again, my color selection will be completely arbitrary today, but I'm going to pick that one. And actually, going into the white is pretty elegant, but what we might do instead, grab that same color. Let's just make it darker. All right. And I'm assuming that's the... Okay, so yeah, that's the point at which that changes. Because I imagine we could probably even do more of those. But what I'm kind of wondering, so we've got softness. That could be cool too. We blow that out. But what I really want to know, and maybe it's... So the opacity is 1. Cool, cool. Solid. Dashed. That could be interesting. I mean, it is interesting. I don't know it's what I want, but it's interesting nonetheless. Dash dot. What about just dot? Can you make it glow? Maybe. It doesn't look very different to me, but it is what it is. I don't know. Like because what I had here, I think, I'm sure I had an option, thickness. Okay. So let's make that a little bit more prominent, and then we will actually see it. All right. So again, I don't know that dot is what I want, but let's see what the other options are. Even solid might suffice here. So what we can do though, but because again, these are properties that we can animate. So maybe I like how it looks here. So let's go in and... In fact, this is literally for the outline. So I can just click on the opacity here. And we'll go back to the 20 mark. And I'll click on the opacity here. And I'll just make that 0. And instead of just sort of going on off, it should actually toggle between those. So it should grow over time. So if I hit play now... I don't know if that was just really... Because I was looking at the teleprompter rather than the screen. Maybe I need to look at the screen. It's really, really fast and not very subtle. But I guess if I drag this in... Because I think a lot of this is actually happening before we even get there. So, I mean, it's okay if it starts from 0 here. But maybe what we need to do is create another one here and just change this to 0 as well. All right. Because I guess we kind of want to see the unfiltered version before that comes on. Again, it's still very, very subtle. And again, maybe what we want to do too, not just the opacity, but potentially also... where is it? Oh, the thickness. Okay. All right. So maybe let's animate the thickness as well, and we'll make that 0. So again, we probably don't need both of these. In fact, what I might do, let's remove that key. So we'll just change the thickness. I'm going to remove this one as well. And let's remove this one. And I'll adjust this. And I mean, that's comically large. So let's go maybe... Although, to be honest, having it large may not be a terrible thing, because the great thing about this is it'll be really not subtle. So if I hit play now... Okay. So thickness... Okay, so I got to change it here. So I'll go 0. It's still not giving me a lot of joy, but it is what it is. Okay. And potentially, like, we can... I guess the other thing that's worth calling out here is that we can actually give... and a lot of these seem to have their own default options here as well. Blue border, element 5, but we can change all these elements independently. And there are all kinds of settings in here, so whatever you want to do could be good. But I might disable that one because I don't want too much going on there. Anyway, I feel like I'm just recreating the wheel a little bit on something we did previously, and I'm not doing a particularly good job of this. But what I think is worthwhile doing, because Saeed mentioned it, let's go to our render tab. And I think there's a really good chance I've already got most of these options in place anyway. But let's just make sure that we're doing the... Not sure where this setting is actually, come to think of it. So QuickTime, okay, so I think I want QuickTime uncompressed. And then I want, I'm sure it's right in front of me and I can't see it. Actually I want this one here. And then export alpha. That's what I'm looking for. Okay. So from here, what I kind of want to do, and I'm assuming it's up here, save as a new preset. So we'll call this one QuickTime with alpha. I don't know. You could call it whatever you like. Hopefully I'll remember what that is later. So now okay, so that's QuickTime and alpha. Okay, so these are the presets at the top here now. So, you know, I could come in here and let's, while we're in here, let's just go back to MP4. And maybe I can say, John's video, I'll just call it John's MP4. Okay, so now I've actually got this, I've got this drop down, but the really weird thing about this is I've got like 4 different screens here. The one you're seeing is on the left-hand side, and it's given me options that actually pop up on the right-hand side, which is so weird, but essentially, and you'll have to take my word for this because there's literally no way I can share this, and I'm not really sure why it's jumping to a whole different monitor, but essentially I can sort of go between those 2 options. That is really weird. I've never noticed that here. And Said's writing QuickTime plus GoPro Synform as a codec also works. Okay, let me have a look at that one. GoPro Synform. Was that for... I don't think I've got this set up to actually use the second monitor. I'm guessing it's under here, preferences. I have no idea where that is actually. And because I think it may be under view. No. Viewer overlay. Switch eye, safe area. Under workspace. Full screen mode, dual screen is disabled. I can't toggle that evidently, which is interesting. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It is just a weird quirk because I literally like it should, like I would have assumed it would just pop up down here, and maybe that's the thing. Like if I resize this window, because I think what it's trying to do. Okay, that is so weird. So if I resize this window, you'll see that my 2 presets are available as a drop down here, but if I maximize it, it goes all the way to a different screen. That may actually have something to do with Microsoft Power Toys regions. I'm not really sure, but anyway. Oh, fun. All right, so I mean that's great. So we can go in, we can create our we can actually sort of save these as presets. We can import presets. I imagine we can probably export them somehow. Yeah, export the presets. So again, if you've got a particular way of working and you've got multiple computers, it's probably worthwhile exporting those, throwing them on some cloud storage, and then going and that's shared between the devices and working that way. But I mean, just for our purposes, let's go and I'll throw this somewhere. Again, I know it's not really done, but I'll say like and subscribe revisited. And I can add that to the render queue. I can render all. All right, so I've got my QuickTime movie. Just opening up file browser so I can see where this actually is. I saved it in my documents under banner. What did I just call this? Like and subscribe, which makes sense. Again, the thing I will point out every single time about this is that this 5 seconds of video footage is 1.15 gigabytes at this uncompressed format in QuickTime. And what I normally do, and what I will do now, just to show you this, in case you haven't seen the previous streams, because I'm obsessed with this piece of software, is I have this little thing called Shutter Encoder. And this is free and it's available on Windows and Mac. But if I drag my QuickTime video over here, and I want to convert this to the VP9, I want to make sure, and I think it's on the advanced features, that I want to enable alpha channel. I don't think there's anything else I need to do here. And I will start the function, and this will create a WebM file. So the thing, and the WebM file is something that I will bring into OBS Studio to just play as a bit of media. And the reason I always bring this up is because the file size is infinitely smaller. And I know there are all kinds of different settings and different codecs and stuff, but I really want to call this out because it's went from 1.5 gigabytes to 355 kilobytes. The one thing I did learn though recently is that DaVinci can't play nicely with these WebM files. So if I wanted to actually bring that animation in and maybe put it over a different video project within DaVinci, I kind of need to go back to the QuickTime version or some other process. And I guess just to give you a sense of what this looks like, if we hit this little home button, which is behind me, I know you can't see it, but this one here, what is Fusion? Okay, I'm on the render tab. I want to go back to edits. So, and this is just a short video that I've shared recently. And I know I can hear it. I know you won't be able to hear it because of the way I've shared this. But essentially, things like my little logo stinger, which you can see on the screen there, a part of me kind of assumed I'd be able to bring in that WebM file back in, but I just couldn't. And ultimately, the easiest thing to do was just re-render that as a QuickTime movie. And even later on in this clip, I sort of show these, the builder presentation muscle and the cute avalanche just getting around banners here. Again, they were also sort of fusion compositions. And I thought, and maybe there is easier and better ways of doing this, but at the end of the day, I just rendered them out as videos and inserted those in here as well. So I know there are different ways of doing this. And I guess I can sort of potentially save this as its own, like some of those fusion components I believe you can save them, make them their own sort of title sequence things, and actually expose different properties. So if you haven't seen this, if you go into, actually just get rid of that. So I mean, we've got all these kinds of defaults here that we can just sort of drag into our projects. And I think we can design Fusion ones in that same way. But I guess I was just a little surprised that I couldn't get the WebMs back into DaVinci. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I guess there are probably all kinds of different options. And what I'm kind of wondering in this exact moment in time is if I could maybe render this. And again, I don't know if this is something Shutter Encoder can do, but I'm kind of wondering if I could render this as maybe a animated GIF with a transparent background. So if I go down and from the picture options, the image creation, just go to image, change this to GIF. I have a weird feeling this probably won't work, but I'm just kind of curious at this point to see if I can have a go. Image adjustments. I'm not really seeing anything that is suggesting it's going to preserve that, but let me literally just give it a go. Okay, so it's done its thing. I'm just opening this on another screen just to see if it will actually play, and I don't think it will. What I might do, I'm going to return to OBS, and I'm just going to bring that image in as... I guess it could be an image or it could be a media, but anyway, I'm just going to put a GIF. I'm going to find this. I really don't think this is going to work, but I think it's worth testing. So if we go into Documents, Banner... Okay, that does work. That does work. So that's, again, I know it's not the most elegant or interesting animation in the world, but it actually does work. So if we go back to DaVinci Resolve with my magical screen share button, I'm really curious now, and I don't really want to do this on this project, but I think just to see if this works, and I can put it in and I can get rid of it. Let's see if we can drag an animated GIF into here. Yeah, it looks like I can. Okay. So, I mean, obviously this is kind of a vertical video, so it's not particularly framed well. But again, I could probably 0.25 or something. There we go. So that's one way I could do that, is actually to use it as an animated GIF, and that is really good to know. It is interesting because this video renders perfectly, but when I do watch it back, sometimes there is some weird artifacting going on there. But anyway, that's really exciting because I didn't think that was going to work, and it actually did work. So animated GIFs might be a really good way of working. And again, if I go into the properties of this particular animated GIF, it's 2.02 megabytes, which again is larger than the WebM file, but it's infinitely smaller than the uncompressed QuickTime file. And I know there are probably all kinds of other formats in there that we could play with. And if you find out what they are, let me know. I'd love to know that. But essentially, we got that now. And I guess it's really cool that DaVinci not only supports animated GIFs, but also respects the transparency of that animated GIF, because that could really make that something I can reuse everywhere and anywhere. So I know that the actual Fusion part of today has not been very exciting. I'll be the first person to admit that. And I'm just learning. Like I've been using DaVinci Resolve for maybe 4 or 5 weeks at this point. So I'm trying not to expect too much of myself on that front, and hope that you're not too disappointed watching along with this, but I hope it was sort of vaguely interesting for some of you. But I mean, that's really cool. And hello to Stefan, who's saying it's midnight in Sweden. Well, lovely to hear from you, but if you do need to sleep, by all means, we can't all be as nocturnal as Saeed, so do whatever you got to do. But that's really cool. So, like, we literally can make our animated GIFs. We can bring in the transparency. We can sort of bring them back into DaVinci Resolve potentially if we wanted to. And I genuinely didn't think that was going to work, and it did work, and it was kind of amazing. So, if nothing else this week, just keep in mind that you can bring animated GIFs back into DaVinci Resolve. So that in itself is really rather awesome. I don't really know that I've got too much more to share with you this week. So if you've got a question, throw it in the chat, or if you've got a comment, let me know. But otherwise, we might start wrapping this one up. Again, I know this was much less planned than normal, and the Sunday streams, and I say Sunday because it's Sunday here in Australia. I realize time zones are a thing, but they're usually pretty low key at the best of times, but today they were even more so. So next week on the video and live streaming show, we are actually talking all about Restream Revisited, and I might even just see if I can I'm just going to bring in an image really quickly, just to show you some of the other shows that we've got scheduled for the month of November. A few of them have already happened. But essentially, let's make that fit the screen. So we had 4 free video tools, which we've already done. Plan, package, and promote your videos, which we've done. Restream Revisited is happening sort of this Friday or Saturday, depending on your time zone. Then we're going to talk about holiday content creation. And finally, we're going to revisit Mix It Up, which is a chatbot, which I realize I haven't had my chatbot open this morning because I was in such a rush, but it is a really beautiful thing. And it is literally free. At the moment, the Mix It Up bot is really only available for Windows, so that's a bit of a drawback. But they are working on a web-based version, and there are sort of other equivalent tools. I think StreamerBot is another option, and I think it might be a little bit more cross-platform than Mix It Up. But I do really like Mix It Up. It's really, really cool. I can sort of set up a whole bunch of chat commands. In fact, you know, Saeed is or was here. I'm not really sure if he's still lingering, but if I go enough said, and I'll just make sure I'm doing this to the YouTube channel only because this is where it's supported. So if I put a comment like this into the chat, again, I'm not running the chat bot, so that's not going to work. Give me 3 seconds to bring up the chat bot. And there is a new version, and I'm going to skip that for the moment just so I can show you this really quickly to make sure the chat bot is actually running. He's still here. He's still lurking, so we'll use him as an example. So if I go enough said, so now I've put this command into the chat on YouTube, and in about a few seconds, we should actually get this message. So the facilitator, Saeed Sadouk on YouTube, youtube.com/thefacilitator. So you can do that. There's a really good chance on YouTube that's even what is the word I'm looking for here? That's actually a clickable link. I'm going to do something, and I hope it's not going to break everything, but because one of the things I normally do is that I will come in and actually turn on the chat replay, which again, it probably doesn't matter too much for today. And I don't know if I can still do this. No, actually it was on by default, which is awesome because that doesn't normally happen for me. I normally need to do that manually. So that's really cool. But essentially the chat bot, you can program it to do all kinds of weird, wonderful things. And I really just use it for chat commands and URLs and links and things. But there's all kinds of stuff. Like you can literally get this to trigger stuff in OBS and other streaming platforms. I know Chantel Hills, she doesn't use Mix It Up for this. She actually uses Social Stream Ninja plugin, and like if you do exclamation mark hydrate, a little animated gif of a penguin drinking some water will pop up on the screen and stuff like that. So Saeed writes, I'm working on my YouTube channel with one eye and watching with the other. Thanks for the shout out. 259 followers now. Yes. I thought I was really inspirational and had so much influence over people. And I just promoted the hell out of Saeed. And I think we got one extra subscriber over 3 or 4 days. So, you know, people don't listen to me at the best of times. So maybe I just need to be okay with that. But if you are interested in sort of running, you know, as being a facilitator, making your meetings and your trainings more interesting and engaging, definitely check out Saeed's content. He's also killing it on LinkedIn as well. All right. So I think at that point, we might start wrapping things up. So have a great rest of your weekends. The video and live stream show will happen later on. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And this is the original animation, not the one I played with today, but it is what it is. And if you want something to listen to, you can check out... you can check out Just Getting Around, which is Sam's podcast about cats. But the button I meant to press was this one here, Build a Presentation Muscle, the show all about showcasing your expertise through content creation, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. And Saeed is constantly making this point about perspective. And he writes, one subscriber is 0.25% growth. That's a lot for a small channel. That is true. And I guess the other thing too, and I mentioned it on the show yesterday, but I should mention it here too, is that I reached 600 odd subscribers earlier in the week. So 606 at the moment, according to YouTube. So that's really cool. You know, I think sometimes we can look at these huge channels and see that they've got 100,000 subscribers and you know, want to compare them with us. But I think just, you know, I don't know where I'm going with this. I really need more coffee rather desperately. So I will wrap this up. But thank you to Business Growth Ready, who writes, cheers for your time. Have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you again very, 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 very soon.